Pennsylvania's legal reforms are supposed to make the Commonwealth more competitive with the neighboring states, making it easier to retain and attract business investment. But what exactly does it all mean to a company that might find itself in the midst of a lawsuit? Well, Keith Whitson is here with the answers. He's a partner at Schnader Harrison Segal Lewis. And welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, well, let's try to bring this into the real world of a real litigation and real products and services. I mean, why is this such a big deal for so many companies?
Well, what this law does is it extinguishes joint liability in most cases. And joint liability is the concept where you might have to pay for harms caused by someone else. Best way to explain this is to maybe give an example of the type of situation where this might apply. Your neighbor digs a hole in his yard, and some of that hole gets onto your property. Somebody comes in, injures himself in the hole, and a jury might find that you should be liable as well as the neighbor because you should have known that that hole was there and didn't do anything to fill up that hole or protect passerbys from walking along. So you're in a situation where, maybe a jury might find you 5% negligent, 10% negligent. Under the old regime, you could end up paying the entire amount of that injured person's damages, even though most of the harm was obviously caused by your neighbor.
Dug the hole, wound up bankrupt, had no resources or assets. You happen to have 5% of the hole on your property, and suddenly you're paying, what, 100% of the liability?
Exactly.
Wow. And
that's happened over and over again in jurisdictions that had this joint liability, and that's why most states have gone away from that, at least in the majority of cases. Now, under this new law, the Fair Share Act, if the jury finds you 5% liable, you pay 5% of the harm. You pay your fair share. Okay, so which is, yeah, again, why they gave it the name, the Fair Share Act. And the analogy you use, I mean, a lot of this gets talked about, oh, it's big corporations, they want this protection. And this is a real grassroots, the real world example. So this was an issue not just for big companies. This is an issue for your own property, your own potential liability. It can help homeowners. It can help the mom and pop shops. It helps anyone who might end up being a defendant in litigation where there is more than one defendant involved.
Okay, and pretty commonplace for that to happen?
Oh, we're involved with that all the time, yes. And matter of fact, because of this old regime where you could hold someone in for 1%, 5%, that was an incentive to name a lot of other parties in the lawsuit who might only tangentially be involved. So it really increased the number of parties involved in a lot of these cases.
So to some degree now, they wouldn't even bother to name you anymore. So it would actually prevent some legal costs for third parties that aren't that core related to this.
So there's certainly less incentive to name the tangential parties, yes.
Interesting. So how do you think this is going to change things going forward?
Well, I think it's one step in the larger plan to try to make Pennsylvania more friendly for businesses. Businesses now will have a lot more predictability. They don't need to worry about being named in a lawsuit where they might have to pay for someone else's wrongs. It's fair to say if we commit a wrong and we cause some harm, we pay for that, and they can assess that risk and plan for it. But now that we don't have to worry anymore for these future cases about paying something for other person's harms, it's a lot easier to plan and predict and manage your risk.
Well, and they always say nothing any business dislikes more than uncertainty. It chills a lot of business decisions, a lot of investment decisions. Having some certainty would seem to help on the other side, right?
Absolutely. And that's why this is one of the first efforts that were passed this year. I know the legislature has a number of other items that they have in mind to try to push through as well to help establish more predictability and more fairness in the legal system, and this is step number one.
Well, and you had said so many other states have already done this. We've really come late to this party, so there still are other issues, other competitive issues around legal reform in Pennsylvania that still do need to be addressed?
Well, yes, and there have been talk in the legislature about caps on damages, about statutes of repose, which are time limitations regarding product liability lawsuits, and other types of reforms that a lot of other states have done and that Pennsylvania is also late to the game.
Wow. Well, great to hear about this. One step forward anyway. We'll keep an eye on everything else that's in the pipeline. Keith Whitson with Schnader Harrison Segal Lewis. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And we'll be back in a minute with more of our Region's Business. Stay with us.